Hello, what's going on? Welcome back to another video, and today we are going to be ranking every single named location in Fortnite Chapter 4 Season OG from worst to best. Now, I haven't done a ranking location video in a long time, so this is going to be a very interesting one to do. So, if you're new to this channel, make sure to subscribe, drop a like, I already said share with it, leave a comment if anyone would be interested, and let's get into it. So, we're going to be ranking all 20 named locations in Fortnite from worst to best. Now, coming in at our number 20th spot, the worst location in my opinion in Fortnite Chapter 4 Season OG. Don't get mad at me if you like this place. It is Wailing Woods. Now, so why do I think Wailing Woods sucks? Now, I've got a very obvious reason to make. Now, don't get me wrong, Wailing Woods is a really good place if you want to stock up on a lot of wood. But the issue I have with Wailing Woods is, apart from the center where there's a few chests around, there's basically nothing around. Like, very few chests around. There's like, I can't look at it, like 9, but I might not be correct, there might be less than that. But there's very few chests in the area, because unfortunately the version of Wailing Woods they brought back isn't necessarily the best version. The better version was when they added more buildings in the area, but yeah, there's very few chests in the area, very few buildings. I will admit, again, the mats is the good thing to this place, but like, the loot isn't not good. Like, most times I drop in Wailing Woods, I get a lot of mats, but I'm just not really running through the area with that great loot. Plus, it's a little bit out of the way as well, so that's a problem. So sometimes you may have to run a bit to get to the circle, and also, I don't think many people really drop here. So it's like, is it really a good dropping spot in my opinion? No. So yeah, that's why I think Windwoods is the worst place. Now, coming in at our number 19 spot, it is going to be Haunted Hills. Just another place that really isn't that great. Now, you can see the gameplay in the background is actually from me this time. Now, for this video, some of the gameplay is from me when I was recording with some other friends, whereas others aren't. So some of the video footage you're going to see is from me, whereas some will be from others. It doesn't matter though, really much. But yeah, Haunted Hills, just like Wailing Woods, I just think it's another really bad place. Now, this place is even worse when it comes to mats. There's some brick around, and the location is not ideal. It's very far away, and it's right next to Junction, obviously. Which, you can see is topped out Junction anyway. Well, Junction is topped out Haunted Hills anyway. But the reason I do not like Haunted Hills is it's another very far away place, and not many people drop here. Like, there was only one game I've had when people dropped here. But the reason I think Haunted Hills is better than Wailing Woods is just, it's better loot. I mean, there's a few more chests in Haunted Hills, I think, than Wailing Woods, and also there are some actual buildings at least you can go into, although they don't already have most time much. But it is, it's better than nothing, if you know what I mean. So yeah. Plus, in terms of chests, Haunted Hills, from what I've counted, has about 14 chests. I might be a bit off, but because there are a few buildings that have a few chests here and there, so Haunted Hills is better than Wailing Woods in my opinion, just because it's got better loot. That's why, really the only reason it's better than Wailing Woods. It's worse in terms of mats, really, because Wailing Woods is a really good wood, but it's just not really much else to do in the center. With Haunted Hills, you got some stuff around, so it's better, but I will say that I don't really like this location either.
And actually, speaking of Junction, as I just mentioned not too long ago, that is actually our number 18 spot. So coming at number 18 is, well, Junction. Now, Junction is just another place, just like Haunted Hills, that I don't think is really a great drop-in spot. Now, in terms of chests, it does actually have even less than Haunted Hills. We're at 9 chests. And it also is even further away from the center of the map, so obviously that is 2 disadvantages for Junction compared to Haunted Hills. But the reason I would say that Junction is better than Haunted Hills in my opinion is just the fact that it's better with materials. I mean, there's some wood pallets around, so that's good for wood. You got all the scrap metal stuff, you can break that and get a lot of metal. So, and just like Haunted Hills, not many people really drop here, so you're probably not going to be getting into a lot of action here. So not good if you're someone that wants to get into a lot of fights. But even though it may have maybe like worse terms of chests, I do think it might still value around. And also you got the llama up there, so yeah, there's a bit extra to it there as well. So just like the last two, it's not great POI either. But in terms of materials, I think it as well, and just the fact that it's got at least some better stuff going for it. With materials, I know Wailing Woods is the better one for obviously wood, but it's really bad totally entirely in the buildings. Whilst Junction has some buildings around at least, and some stuff you can harvest, while also having better loot than it anyway, and then better material stuff than Haunted Hills. So that's why Junction gets a spot at number 18. Okay, now let's move on to number 17 spot, which in my opinion I'm going to give it to Flush Factory. Yes, that's right, Flush Factory. Another not great location.
Now, just like the last few other spots, Flush Factory is just another one of those locations that personally I just don't really like that much. Now, I'm not saying I hate this place. This is the first place in my opinion on the list that's not awful, but it's still one of those places that isn't really that great. In terms of chests, Flush Factory has about 9 chests, similar to that of the last spot, aka Junction. And another common issue that this place also has, just like with Junction actually, is, you know, it's very far out of the way. You know, it's in the bottom southwest corner of the map, close to the obviously next to the factory landmark, which I will mention about that towards the end of this video. And another landmark, I'll explain all of that later on in the video. But personally, just Flush Factory isn't really the best place. The loot isn't terrible, and I think it's got slightly better loot than the last few spots, I think. So the loot itself isn't necessarily that bad. It's just more of its actual location on the map, which isn't great. So if you've got circles that go on the other side of the map, it will suck, and that's why I don't like Flush. It's not to do with really the location much itself. It's just it's a bad location, and that's why I don't like this place too much either. But I don't necessarily hate it. Now let's move on to the number 16 spot, which I'm gonna give it to Tomato Temple. Now Tomato Temple is another location that really isn't that great, but the reason why I think Tomato Temple was the best of the bottom 5 is simply because of its location, because it is fairly central. It's you're most likely going to be in the zone most of the time, because it is fairly central. It isn't the most central location on the map, but it is fairly central. Not many people really seem to drop here either, so that is not ideal. But I don't necessarily hate this place. I mean, although some of the people in the past have really hated on this place, I don't think it's the worst, because it is fairly central, and that's why I got to give it some bonus points. As far as chests goes, from what I've counted, it's got 9 chests, so it's the same with some of the other spots. So it isn't the best on loot, but I think its central location is why I personally think it's a better one than the others. Sure, not necessarily got great loot, and it isn't necessarily ideal, but at least Tomato Temple has location. Anyway, coming in at our number 15 spot, this is going to be Snobby Shores. Now, I think this will be quite a shocker to some people, especially for those who do like Snobby Shores. Now, this location is the first one on this list that I don't even dislike, actually. So, from this spot all the way upwards, these are places that are, somewhat decent, some decent, some very, very good. So, this is the first place on this list that is not, I don't think, bad. In fact, I think Snobby Shores is a pretty decent location to land at. And it has decent loot. As far as chests, it's got about 14 chests. So, there is some decent loot compared to some of the other locations on this list that we've already covered. However, my issue with Snobby Shores is just that no one really drops there either, and also it is very, very far out of the way. So, for example, you can see on this gameplay, for example, like this is just an example of me having quite a bit of a run from Snobby Shores and all that. So don't get me wrong, POI is good itself and the loot is decent, but I think the location and just the fact that you don't get much action here is just why I don't think this place is really that standout. I still think this is, but honestly, even when it comes to loot, decent location. But when it comes to essential location on the map, just like some of the others, it isn't ideal. But this is definitely the first decent location on this list. Now, moving on to number 14, it is going to be Lucky Landing. Now, Lucky Landing, in my opinion, it's another very average location, very similar in my opinion to Snobby Shores, really. I mean, both I think are pretty similar locations. Both have similar loot. Lucky Landing, in terms of chests, has about 13, so they're practically similar in loot, and they're also practically similar in terms of location, where they're actually located on the map, quite far away. But I do think Lucky Landing is a little bit better, in my opinion. You're close to Fatal Fields, and you can rotate on Solly, and there are vehicles in it. And sometimes you might get an occasional couple that might drop here with you. And Lucky's overall fine. It's not one of the best, but it's just one of those locations. It's pretty average. Average loot, not necessarily an ideal location, but you can maybe get a couple kills there if you can. So yeah, Lucky Landing is not bad. It's just not the best, but it's alright, and it comes in obviously at number 14. Alright, we are now going to move on to our number 13 spot, where it's going to be a very controversial one for those who are a fan of this location. It's going to be Lazy Links. Now, Lazy Links, honestly, this place I can relate to it really well compared to some of the other locations like Junction and Flashing Light. It's another one of those locations that doesn't have great loot, but at the same time there are a lot of vehicles in this area, so that's why it kind of gets a bit of a bonus. But I don't actually hate Lazy Links, just the problem with it is just not the best loot. And then I remember back in the day that used to a lot of people to drop here, but from what I've seen, I don't think as many people actually drop in now, so it's not bad. But Lazy Links does kind of struggle on loot compared to other POIs, so if you do have a lot of people dropping here, it really isn't going to be ideal. About chests, it's actually got the same. It's tied with other places like Junction and Windwoods and Tomorrow Temple and all those other places in Flush with 9 chests as well, 8 or 9 chests. So it's in that similar amount. As far as location, it's on the northern side of the map, but you are close to a very good place. So it's a very good place, which we'll get to later on this list. And loot again, as I said, isn't the greatest and all of that. Now, don't get me wrong. The place isn't bad. I mean, there's a lot of vehicles around in this POI, so it's relatively easy to get out or rotate out of here. So I will give it that. It's almost like with Snobby and Lucky, where it's just average. Although of course loot here is worse than those two places, but I think the fact you got a lot of vehicles around there, it's something, and also it's very close to not too far from a very, very good place, which we'll get to later on this list. So, yeah, Lazy Links comes in at number 13 on our list. Anyway, with that being said, let's go to our number 12 spot, which I'm going to give it to Lonely Lodge. Now, in my personal opinion, Lonely Lodge, I actually feel like is pretty underrated. Now, hear me out. Now, in terms of chests, I've counted up, and Lonely Lodge is about 12. So kind of less than some, but also more than some of the others that we've already covered on the list. I know location isn't also necessarily the best, because it's quite on the edge of the map. But the reason I actually quite like Lonely Lodge is there's some decently around. And plus, not a lot of people go there again. So you're probably by yourself. But also, the thing that really makes me like Lonely Lodge, and this is the bonus this place gets compared to some of the others, is mushrooms. So if you're someone that needs to get some extra shield or one shield without having to waste any shields or big pots or anything like that, Lonely Lodge is a really good place for it, because there's mushrooms in the other area. There's another certain location that does have mushrooms, which we'll get to later in the list, but Lonely Lodge gets a nice bonus because of the mushrooms. Loot's decent. In fact, back in the day, I just used to always like landing Lonely Lodge. Sure, it's not the best in terms of loot, but also it's not that bad. Plus, you can get there's some decent stuff around. Plus, the mushrooms, as you can see on the gameplay, really do help if you want to consume a lot of shield without having to use any shield potions. So that's one of the main reasons why Lonely Lodge, I think, really gets some bonus points. And I actually feel like this place is pretty underrated. It's a pretty decent location, and I definitely think so far out of every location we've covered on this list, this is the best one. But I do think there is some better locations on our list, such as our number 11 spot, which is actually going to be Shifty Shafts. Now, in my opinion, I feel like Shifty Shafts is a really decent POI to land at. Now, as far as the place considered altogether, now when I came to counting the chests for the POI, I did count the 2 houses next to it, and altogether I counted there was about 17 chests, so about average 15 to 17 chests best. So there's about 15 to 17 possible chests. So I did count those 2 houses. But what I'm saying, this place has even got the best loot in terms of chests out of all the locations on this list. Now, why do I like Shifty Shafts? Well, sure, it might not be like a larger spot compared to others, but the thing I really like about Shifty Shafts, you know, it's got central and good location, like, and also it's right next to Tilted Towers. So if you are worried about going to Tilted Towers and you're already going to die off spawn, you know what you could do? Just land here and then rotate to Tilted. But sometimes you might get the odd few that even land here anyway, so you might get a couple kills there, and then that's good. And then the strat maybe after that, if you don't want to go Tilted straight away but still want to pick up kills at Tilted afterwards, is just to, you know, land here, rotate on the Tilted. And then you get, you know, eased into that chaos. And that's why I like Shifty Shafts, you know, like I said, it's got some more loot, really decent location, and also, you know, close to Tilted, so that's a bonus. And it comes in number 11. Alright, we are now going to move on to our top 10. And so, coming out at number 10 spot, this is going to be Fatal Fields. Now, Fatal Fields is one of those locations that, you know, is also pretty good. Now, in terms of chests, this place is a little bit worse than it used to be. It's at 12 chests this time. From what I've counted, that might be a little inaccurate potentially, but it's what I counted. And unfortunately, they didn't bring back the farmhouse and decided to chuck in another barn. So there's 2 copies of the same barn. But even that, I still think this place is pretty decent. You know, the location isn't that bad. You know, it's close to Salty. When you rotate on Salty, you're in the middle of the map. Sometimes people might drop here as well, so you might get a few kills. And you know, it's pretty decently large POI. I will say the version of FIFA I used to play was the slightly better version, but you know, it's still a pretty good location. Yeah. So yeah, enough for us to take us into the top 10, but there are certainly some better places. And actually, speaking of Salty Springs, when I just mentioned a moment ago, coming at number 9 spot is actually going to be Salty Springs. Now, I personally think this is probably one of the more controversial ranking spots in this video for those who do watch it, because I know very well a lot of people do like Salty Springs. Personally, I don't love Salty that much. Now, don't get me wrong, this place it's decent when it comes to like, although not really, it's only got like 12 chests. Yeah, 12 chests, and it's very ridiculous when you have a lot of people landing there. So it's not great in terms of loot. You got a lot of people landing there, so if you're not a great player, then this place is honestly a real bad dropping spot. But the one thing that Salty really has going for it is its location. It has incredible location. You know, you're basically most of the time going to be in the zone anyway. You're very rarely not going to be in the zone, and even if you aren't in the zone, you're likely not going to have to run very far anyway. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Salty Springs is bad, but like it's overrated. But at the same time, it's good enough for me to put it into the top 10, but certainly not near enough to be in the top 5. Like, I personally think Salty Springs is overrated, honestly. Like, this place, it really isn't that great. Don't get me wrong, a lot of people land there, so if you're a good player and you want to get kills, then this place is a real good place to drop to drop. But at the same time, there's other places that a lot of people drop at do have better loot anyway, so yeah. Personally, I think, in my opinion, Salty Springs does kind of suck, although the good thing going for it, obviously, though, is its location. Anyway, let's move on to our number 8 spot, where this is going to be Risky Reels. Risky Reels is just another very amazing POI. Honestly, I think this is the high ranking one when it comes to like the outskirt POIs. Now, in terms of chests, this has only 12, so it might not be standing out compared to other locations, but you know, one thing that's really good about this place, metal, and also technically wood as well, because you know, in Risky Reels there is a lot of cars around, so if you're someone that likes to get all that metal, you can just very quickly farm those cars, and you know, you'll be, you know, getting yourself a lot of metal. Plus, you know, some trees around all those fences you can break, so that's good for wood. And yeah, guys, for those watching this video, for those OGs, I mean, I never was playing at this time, but I do know that back in the day there used to be that challenge where you had to search 7 chests in Risky Reels, which I'm sure that was ridiculous hard for those who did have to deal with that challenge back then. Yeah, for those bring it up, but yeah, Risky Reels, great place, great location, and it comes in at number 8. Anyway, let's move on to our number 7 spot, which was a very tough call because these last 7 places are really good, but I'm going to give it to Greasy Grove. Now, in my opinion, Greasy Grove is just another I think next 7 spots, these places are really great. Although I think out of these best 7, Greasy Grove is the worst and all, but this place is absolutely incredible. I mean, I've been landing it quite a bit during the season. I mean, I've never had much experience with the original Greasy Grove. I was more experienced with like these Chapter 3 Greasy Grove, and then even though it went at Season X. So, yeah, but even the original Greasy Grove, this place is pretty good. Now, Chapter is about 14 chests, but this place is pretty large, and, you know, you can even, you know, land in with a squad and that. And actually, quite a lot of people do drop here, actually. I've seen quite a few people drop here. Even on this gameplay, you see on the screen right now, there's actually someone who gets 6 kills there in the solo game. You can just see that Greasy Grove is a really popular dropping spot, and it's got decent loot. It's got pretty good loot. Plenty of buildings around, very large area, decent, very average in mats, decent wood, decent metal. I'm sure there's decent brick around too. So it's a very average place in terms of materials. You got very average loot, and once you get people dropping here, but it's also fairly large, so it's a pretty good place, you know, to drop. I mean, personally, one of my favorite locations in the season. Well, these next 7 are all incredible, but and even though Greece is incredible, there is just a few other extra spaces, like our number 6 spot, which I am going to give this to Pleasant Park. Now, obviously, this is a really tough call. These last 6 spots, like 7 spots, tough one to pick. Some people are going to really argue that number 6 for Pleasant Park is far too low. Some people are going to argue that it should be top 3, and I respect that. And don't get me wrong, Pleasant Park is a really, really good place, and it has better loot, which is why obviously an apple over Greasy Grove. You know, very, very popular dropping spot. But if you just remember that these last like 7 spots onwards were just so good, so it really makes it a tough call, really. Like number 6 for Pleasant Park, I think some people are going to think that's really low, but remember again, as I just said, these last 7 spots are places that's really good. I mean, what's good about Pleasant Park? You know, it's got great loot. As far as chests goes, it's got about 17 chests, which is actually the most out of all the places we have covered on this list so far. So it has great loot. Location isn't the best, but it's not the worst either. You're close to Loot Lake and Tilted Towers, which we're yet to rank those, and we'll see how those places rank and all that. So Pleasant's so not only got, you know, a good spot itself, you've also got 2 other good locations nearby. Plus, you know, as I said, great loot, and you know, a lot of people drop at Pleasant Park anyway. So if you are somebody that likes to get tons of kills, then obviously this is just, you know, one of your considerations. Now, yeah, I get this place is quite popular, like Salty Springs, but Salty Springs doesn't have a lot of loot, so that's why the place kind of sucks. Although it doesn't suck, but it just isn't great. Whereas Pleasant Park, you know, it's a lot larger. Even though a lot of people land there, you know, you got better chance of landing on a building on your own potentially sometimes. Like, and honestly, because of Pleasant Park's better loot than Greasy Grove, that's why he puts it number 6. Alright, we are now in our top 5, and going on to our number 5 spot. This is going to be Retail Row. Anyway, so yeah, Retail Row number 5. Well, this is again a very tough pick. So again, Retail Row is just another place that's really good, but I do personally think it's the worst of the best. So when it comes to the top 5. So when it comes to the OG4, you know, Pleasant, Salty, Greasy, and obviously Retail. It's always the worst because of obviously the loot and too many people go there sometimes. Greasy, you know, is better, but then Pleasant's got better loot, but so a lot of people go there. Retail was even better loot at 21 chests, I think it does, something like that. And a lot of people land there, but you know, there's also a lot of buildings around, so you got great loot here. And if you can, you know, land there and survive, you're most likely like going to walk out with at least decent loot, even maybe most likely even great loot. Again, you got a lot of loot at Retail, which is the thing. There's a good amount of loot here. There's like over 20 chests, and you know, a lot of people drop here. So if you're someone that likes to get into fights, you are likely to, you know, walk away with quite a few kills and all that stuff. So yeah, and honestly, Retail Row, I love this place. Some people are going to argue the 5 for Retail Row is a bit low, but I understand, and I can understand. But these next 4 spots are just even better in my opinion, which actually coming at a number 4 spot, this is going to be Loot Lake. Now the version of Loot Lake I am ranking is obviously the Floating Island Loot Lake. If we were ranking the Loot Lake before, I would probably put it I think just above Salty Springs, but behind Risky Reels. Because I saw a decent loot, but obviously the Lake Kingdom was annoying to get through. But this version of Loot Lake is just even better, and I think it deserves the number 4 spot. There is, there's tons of, there's even more chests, there's tons of them, and there's more on the actual island itself. So there's probably 20 to 30 chests. I don't know the exact amount for this version. But there is within 20 to 30 chests, I think there's probably 25-ish maybe, I don't know. But there is a lot more extra loot now in Loot Lake with this update, and honestly, this version of Loot Lake is just fun to go around. Don't ask really much about the gameplay that I found. This person like asking for people to land in Loot Lake. Came across that, I thought it would be funny for the gameplay. But what am I saying? This is Loot Lake with the floating islands is absolutely incredible. Tons of loot, a lot of people drop there. And just like Pleasant Park and other places, if you're someone that likes to go somewhere with great loot, but wants to also go for a lot of kills, this is again another place to go to. And just like with Shifty Shafts, like if you don't want to go tilted straight away, you just go here and rotate the tilted. Plus Loot Lake is very central, so you're most likely not going to have to run very far, even if you're not in the circle. So that is another good thing about this location. And yeah, there's not much wrong I'd say about Loot Lake. It's just a very fun place to go around, but it isn't going to quite be enough to reach the top 3. And actually, we reached the top 3, which is we're just down to Tilted, Dusty, and Paradise. And actually coming out number 3 spot, it is going to be Paradise Palms. Now, Paradise Palms, without a doubt, is one of the best locations on this map. It's coming at number 3. It just leaves Tilted Towers and Dusty Desert, which will rank those two. We'll see where those two are going to rank. But Paradise Palms is incredible. It's got some of the best loot in the game. It's got the second most chests on the map, about 23 from what I've counted. Get tons of people dropping here, sometimes at times. So it's good if you want to get kills. It's also got great loot. I've always loved Paradise Palms. It's not much bad about the place. The only one issue that I have with Paradise Palms, and this is why it's getting ranked lower than the other two, is because of its location. It is pretty far up the way. The closest place near it is like a place where Retail Row, and even that's not really that close to anything, although the vehicles and lots of nearby do help. But it is a great place nevertheless. You get people dropping in, there's great loot and all that stuff. A great place. And honestly, if you're someone who's also looking for kills, just like with some of the other places here, it's another great location. It's just like with Pleasant Park and Retail Row, where if you want to go somewhere that has a lot of kills, where you want to get a lot of kills and also great loot, it's a great place to land at, and that's why it comes in at number 3. Now, before we get to our top 2, I do want to give a couple of honourable mentions. So the first one goes to the Factory Landmark area with the dance club just north of Flush Factory. Now, this place is a really incredible place to land at. Literally, in terms of chests, it has 18 chests, which is most of the name POIs, yet this is a flipping landmark. It is an incredible place to go to. You can get tons of mats, especially Eastern wood and metal, and you can get decent loot. And honestly, I highly recommend that landing this place. If we were including landmarks on this list, this would probably be top 5 for sure. But obviously, we only counted in named POIs, so that's why this wasn't on the list. But even if we were counting some of the landmarks, this place would be up there. Like I said, great loot and all that stuff, and that's why I thought this location deserves being a part of the honorable mentions. And then my other second honorable mention goes to the little village area, whatever you want to call it, south of Paradise Palms. Just like the factory landmark south of, well, just north of First Factory, this little landmark here, the desert village, whatever you want to call it, is another real incredible place for loot. If we were ranking these on the list, this would also be in the top 5. Because these places, despite being landmarks, literally have so much loot. This place has got about 18 chests total. And it has a ton of loot. And some buildings even have like 2 or 3 chests, if you're lucky. It's another great place to land at. And especially if not much people go here, you can get tons of loot. And even I even would say this place is good enough for squads as well. Like literally, there's all the small buildings, but literally there's so many chests around, so you can easily get tons of loot. This is a very good place to go to if you're someone that wants to get tons of loot, but maybe not someone that's so chaotic. You might get the odd few that land with you, but it's it's not hectic like other places. So that's why these two places deserve the honorable mentions. Anyway, let's go to our number 2 spot, which is going to be Tilted Towers. Now, yes, I understand there's going to be a huge argument for people saying that Tilted should be number 1 on this list. But in my opinion, I want to disagree. Now, don't get me wrong, Tilted Towers is an incredible place. It's, you know, one of the best locations on the map, obviously, anyway. It's got the most chests we've got. It's got well over 30 chests. I think it's like 37 mark count. Again, might be a little inaccurate, but it's got over 30 chests. So it's got the most loot out of a POI. Lots of people can land this, so if you're someone that obviously wants to get a lot of kills, this is a really good place to land. It's also, of course, very central, you know, one of the more central locations in the game, obviously, so that makes it good. Very large POI, lot of buildings, you can get a lot of action, there's a lot of great loot. There is nothing really bad I can really say about Tilted Towers, and again, as I don't get me wrong, it's a really excellent POI, but I just want to argue the fact that Tilted isn't my personal favourite location. And I'm going to convince you why I don't think it's the best place on the map when we get to a number 1 spot shortly, which, if you can figure out what the number 1 spot is, it's going to be a very surprising. Don't get me wrong, Tilted Towers, great location, great POI, but I want to argue the fact that, as I said, it's not the best location. Sure has everything from loot to set location and stuff, but I don't think it's number 1. And I think coming in at my number 1 spot, I personally think the best location is Dusty Divot. So, in my opinion, why do I think Dusty Divot is the best location in the game? Now, in terms of loot, it doesn't have the best, but it's still decent. It has 18 chests from what I've counted up. Now, and also another location is absolutely amazing. You know, it's smack down in the center of the map, so the most central location on the island. Plus, there's also 2 POIs stuck together. So basically, that's another good thing about this location. Also, it's very safe. Now, sure, it's low ground, but there's a lot of trees, so it's good for camping players as well, because, you know, you're most likely not going to get sniped. So this place is really good for materials. So if you're someone who likes to harvest those materials, it's a good place for you. Plus, it has a lot of mushrooms. That's also part of why this gets a huge bonus, the mushrooms. Just as I said with Lonely Lodge, you know, this place, because of the mushrooms, this is going to be really handy if you don't want to have to waste your, you know, shield, like use your shield potions or anything to get your shield. Where instead you just use the mushrooms there. And Lonely Lodge has it, but the thing with Lonely Lodge is it's so far out of the way, and a pretty average location, which I'll put down at number 12. But the thing with Dusty Divot is it takes those stuff, but you also, you know, got better loot, and it's in the central location, and people actually drop here. But I think this is one of the more safer central locations in the game. I've always loved Dusty Divot, and this is, I think personally, the best location currently in Fortnite Chapter 4 Season OG. And that is our list. So if you enjoyed this video, thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe, drop a like, share, leave a comment for any of your suggestions of what videos you think I should do at some point. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this list. Let me know what your favourite location is if you want to, what your least favourite location is, and how you would rank these POIs, in your opinion. And yes, so with that being said, thank you for watching, and I will talk to you next time, and goodbye.